welcome back to my channel. My name is Rosa Victoria, and today we're going to have the conversation on how I built my business to 6 figures by the time I was the age of 24, which is wild. Like, when you put it into perspective, it is absolutely wild. However, there's a whole story that goes into this, and I want to take you through the process so that you can understand how to build sustainable income inside of your business. So if you are here because you want to step into the energy, the spirit, the physical, the strategy of business, then please do drop me a like and subscribe down below and stay tuned for weekly episodes. I grew up in Yorkshire, and if you can't tell by my dodgy northern accent, I'm a Yorkshire lass, and I grew up with a lot of like stereotypical old school money beliefs of money is hard to come by. We're going to make it, but we're just going to survive. We're going to bring in the money, but it's going to be bare minimum, and we're just going to get by. Now, my parents separated when I was the age of 5. So my dad lived away and my mum lived in the UK. And she put us into childminders because she had to work full time. So we would go to school with childminders. We'd go to the childminders after school. My mum would pick us up. We'd go home for a bath. We'd go to bed. And that was just the lifestyle that we lived until I was old enough around the age of 11 to walk myself to school, to come back. And then my mum would be home around an hour and a half after I got back from school. So I spent a lot of my childhood either with other people or on my own, already with the belief of money is going to make you miss out on those special moments and making memories with your loved ones. Now, when I think of my childhood, I have a lot of memories in my grandparents' house, a lot of memories with childminders, but I don't have a lot of memories with my parents because that time was spent working. And if it wasn't spent working, it was spent taking care of the household. So there was a lot about missing out on life and missing out on the life experience. And as much as we had everything that we needed, we were clothed, we were fed, that came with stress and it came with burdens. And I remember a lot of arguments around money and whether money was affordable and whether they could afford school uniform. And this has created such a belief system for me of, I'm going to have to make my own money so that I don't burden my parents and so that I don't add more stress to them. And for those of you who have known me through my years of healing, one of the biggest ways that I was affected is always thinking about my parents' needs rather than my self needs. And even though my parents could vocalize, please don't think about our needs, it was happening on a subconscious level because of the situations that I'd been around and the ways that I'd listened to fights and arguments around money. So at the age of 13, 14, I started working as a pot washer in a high-end restaurant here in Yorkshire. And I would go there after school and I would work about until 1 a.m. and then I'd get a lift home and I'd go to school the next morning. And I loved this. I loved the energy of this because it allowed me to go and socialize with my friends without having to ask to borrow more money. But it also built this belief very early on of, if I want money, I'm going to have to work hard for it. Again, I'm going to have to trade my time for money. There's going to be a big stress to make money. I'm going to have to work hard for it. And yes, you can have it, but you're going to have to sacrifice, spending time with your friends, or you're going to have to sacrifice your childhood. And I feel like that's massively why by the time I was 16, I was already thinking about how am I going to make money and what is my career going to look like? Because I knew that if I wanted to make money, I had to depend on myself. I didn't have parents to pay for my driving lessons. I didn't have, certain experiences that I desired and that I craved, and therefore I had to do it for me. So by the time I was 16, I was already thinking in an entrepreneur's mindset. Now, if you are an entrepreneur, you will know that you don't choose entrepreneur life, it chooses you. I remember being around 5 and me and my friend would pick flowers from our local village. And then we'd take glass bottles that people had put in the glass bin. We'd put the flowers inside them and then we'd knock on people's doors and sell them for 20p so that we could go and buy a Freddo from the shop. And my entrepreneur life started very, very young because I knew that, hey, you desire that, you have to create that for yourself. You have to step into that for you. So by the time I was 16, I was thinking money, I was thinking business, I was thinking future. And I actually decided not to go to mainstream college, and I went to a college that specialized in holistic therapies. So at the age of 16, I was training in holistic therapies, and I set up my own business in my mom's spare room. Now, as I set up this business, I had no understanding of business. I had no education of business, and I had nobody to teach me business. And as a 16-year-old, I was like, I know everything about everything, and I'm just going to throw myself in and everything's going to be fine. That is not what transpired. I made a lot of mistakes. I was messy. I shouldn't have been charging for some of those services because I was still learning. By the time I was 17, I was sued by a company because I was advertising in a way that I felt like I was able to advertise, but actually the sentence that I used was trademarked by another company that I had no idea around. So by the time I was 17, it was like, okay, so I'm going to try to make a living and I'm going to be crucified for that. I'm going to try to make a living. I'm going to step out there and, it's just going to take a toll on me. It's just going to burn me out. Now, at the age of 17, I trained in sports massage therapy, and that was something that I was incredibly good at. Like, I know that from the depth of my core that massage is a huge part of my journey and will forever be a huge part of my journey. So at the age of 17, I flew to France to work in the Val d'Isère French Alps, and I actually managed to bag myself a job in the first spa in the Val d'Isère as the spa manager. So here I am as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, choosing what facial treatments we do, choosing our product line, choosing how we sell. Like, there was a lot of responsibility that came with this job, but I loved it. I thrived from it. And I loved feeling like, okay, like I get to have a career and this gets to be my potency. Now, when I step into this position at 18, it taught me a lot. If you've ever been to the French Alps, you will know that there's money that's available. So I would get paid to massage people's feet whilst they fell asleep at night. I would get paid to massage people whilst they chilled out in the hot tub. And it just brought to my attention of like, oh, this is how the wealthy lives. And I became very, very aware of they're wealthy, I'm not. Like, that is not my experience. That is not what I get to have in my life. And I became even more aware of my insecurities, my fears, my personal beliefs. I'd always use food as a way to hold emotions. I'd stressy, I'd binge, and my self-worth just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Throw in a few toxic relationships, and the energy just escalated into something way bigger. So by the time of 18, 19, when I came back from France, I started taking drugs. I started to socialize and overdrink. I started to hang around with the wrong people, to hang around with criminals. Like, I was just at a pit of, I don't feel good enough, and therefore I'm going to sabotage this beautiful work relationship that I get to have. Now, in the meantime, on one hand, you had the Rosie that was partying, that was, exploring herself in the wrong way. And then you had the Rosie that still came back and set up a massage salon in the UK and was making money and was treating people and was delivering very, very powerful services and getting very, very powerful testimonies. So you had these two sides of me. But as I was making money, I was spending money. As I was making money, I was, throwing money down the drain, partying and overspending. As I was making money, I was buying temporary feel goods. So anything that made me feel good, avoiding paying my bills. And what do you know? It escalated and I'm in debt. Now, there reached a point where I let go of my flat in the UK and I ran away to Wales, because that's what Rosie always did. Rosie always ran away. And if you knew me in my chaotic days, you will know that if the things got tough and I did something that I wasn't proud of, I would run away. So I ran away to Wales. I had nowhere to stay in Wales, and I stayed in a friend's daughter's bedroom on a camp bed for around 6 months. And I was so ashamed of my financial relationship, so ashamed of my debt. I felt worthless. I felt like my parents were gonna want to disown me, that I just crumbled in this space. Now, I eventually came home. And I had to really sit there and face myself and say, look, if you're going to change, you need to change now. You need to change right now. And I'd known that I'd always been connected with spirit. I'd always prayed as a young girl. I'd always been open to spirit, had conversations with spirit. And I'd always seen spirit and heard spirit. But I'd never allowed myself to explore it. Because if you look at my family, they're not a spiritual family. They're quite conservative and a little bit rigid. And therefore I'd been hesitant in this. Now, when I was 20, somebody gave me a set of angel cards, and I was at my lowest of my low. I was living at Wales. I was absent from my family dynamics. I was in an abusive relationship. There was a lot going on in my life, and somebody passed me these angel cards. And I remember this rush of emotion over my body of this is it. This is my calling. This is my magic. This is where I take my holistic therapy of touch and healing through massage, and I escalate it into a bigger business. And so I started delivering readings online. And these readings at the time were about £25. and I would sell them, I would share them, I would go live, do readings, and it just escalated and it just got bigger. And I finally realized that I had to heal my insecurities with myself. I had to heal my anger at my parents and just humanize them, because yes, they'd hurt me, but they're human beings, they're on a journey, and they couldn't help the way that their relationship panned out. And the more I started to heal, the more money started to become available, because your capacity is your reality. So if you are holding insecurities and fear and doubt and shame, that's going to be held inside of your money relationship. Now, money started to come thick and fast, and suddenly then I'm hosting bigger energetic containers, and then I'm exploring even more of my gifts. I became qualified in NLP, CBT, energy work. I did a lot of qualifications, started to share these offers, these containers. Things escalated, things got bigger. Now, bring me to the age of 21. I met Lewis. We decided to take a risk on the business. We decided to go all in. I had no idea what I was doing, and I would just throw things out there and just hope for the best and just hope that things materialized. And they would, like, along the way, things would happen and magic kept brewing, and I knew it was my life path. At the age of 22, I fell pregnant with Luna. Luna came into the world, and I knew that something had to change and something had to shift. Now, at the age of 22, this was my first six-figure year. However, it was my first six-figure year, but there was a lot of burnout. I was still overspending. I was still learning my habits. I was still learning to control my money. I was still learning where, like, I overindulged, where I didn't treat money right. And so whilst this was my first six-figure year, I always say when I turned 24, that was my first six-figure year. Why? Because it's the time where I made the money, I had control of the money, and I'd broken my own cycles, because I'd already looked at my money relationship and what needed to change for me to actually be available and responsible to these bigger amounts of money. Now, when I look at me stepping into making six figures in business, it was because, one, I owned my craft. I got so comfortable with who I was and what I delivered that everybody in my audience could feel it. Now, if you're a business owner right now, the thing that you need to do is you need to get super comfortable with your craft. And in the beginning days of your business, you're going to be practicing your craft, right? You're going to be practicing giving your craft out there, sharing it with your audience. And so I would go live like every other day doing live readings, chatting with my audience, hosting conversations, not because I had to, but because it was helping me to amplify the clarity in who I was and the shifts that I was going to create for my audience. So my biggest recommendation is, how can you practice your energy as a leader, as a service provider, and get fully comfortable with your gifts and your genius layer? Two is, I was visible. And whenever I sit with my clients now, one-to-one or in group containers, and they're trying to build their business to six figures or sustainable 10K months, the biggest thing that I say is, you need to get visible. And that's the thing that scares a lot of people, because holding their attention on YouTube or getting visible on social media, these are the things that we don't often get the instant reward from. However, in the beginning days of your business where you're getting yourself to six figures, you need to get your name out there, you need to get your energy out there, and you need to do that consistently. So the biggest thing that you can do for your business is to hold the value in visibility, and not just dead end visibility, but visibility that's going to create impact and allow your audience to see exactly who you are. And when I look at my business now and the business that I've scaled, I know that I've scaled this because I left nothing on the table about who I was, and my foundational root of visibility is absolutely ingrained in. So right now I can drop an offer and just like randomly sell to my audience and they'll buy. But it's because in the beginning of my business, I took the time to allow my audience to understand me, understand what I was moving through, and understand how I could serve them in this life as a psychic business coach moving forward. From the age of 20 to 2022, I learned where I was devaluing myself by just doing everything low end. And I had to really understand, if I'm going to build a successful business, I need to see how talented I am, how worthy I am, how capable I am. And so I started to look at my relationship with money and where my relationship with money was actually hindering the experience that I got to create, because more people than ever started to pay me when I started to charge more. Because there's a power in what charging more actually does, is it sets the value of how valuable you feel to your audience in a way where they see your confidence and they see your leadership. And that is something that's super activating when they're thinking about investing and thinking about making those fuck yes decisions. So I had to step into the energy and the frequency of what does it look like to hold deeper confidence in myself and in my skill set. And from from being 20 to being 2022, not 2022, being 22. Jesus, the years. And actually, so how old was I in 2020? I don't know. I can't do maths, whatever. So when I look up between being 20 and 2022, like I really learned my relationship with money. I learned how effed my belief systems were about money, of how much I'd like sold my time and my energy rather than knowing that I got to sell based on how talented I was and how much I got to receive. And that didn't mean that I had to give more or overcompensate more or any of those things. Like it was safe for me to just give and hold this new price point. So I really started to understand where I deemed myself worthy and break through those money insecurities and value the price points that I put out there a little bit more. This is my favorite because this was the biggest stretch for me. I stopped just winging it and just throwing things out there and started to think about how am I making intentional content that speaks to my audience. So before I'd got to that point, I was focusing on visibility, getting my craft out there, getting my name out there. But when I really started to drop a little bit deeper into the energy, I started to think about let's hold the visibility, but let's also be intentional with the energy that we want to craft for our audience. And so I started to look at how are my audience perceiving me? What is their understanding of me? And this is what allowed me to also shift my price point. Second of all, I started to look at how can I get to know what they need so that they can see me as the leader? What does it look like to be intentional with the content that speaks directly to their needs and helps them to know that I can support them and guide them? And so I started to slow down the pace at which I threw things out there and look at the intention of what I was creating and the impact that I was leaving on this world. Sit here and give you like point after point after point after point, but I'm gonna leave it there because I wanted this to be a fun and easily digestible little trailer for my platform. So if you've enjoyed this video, like and subscribe down below, and do let me know in the comments what questions you have, because on my daily podcast, I will be diving into those questions and making sure that I can build this as a community-led project that taps directly into your needs. Now, I'm going to drop the link to my Hot Audience workshop down below, which is a workshop that takes you through how to build connection with your audience, what it looks like to build an audience that love to buy from you, that just click the link, that just invest with you. And it also has a bonus resource of 15 sales strategies that you can use in your business to build and scale and grow to six figures and beyond. And just because I'm the gift that keeps on giving and I'm handsy, you'll learn that about me. I like to bring my hands into the process of my videos. But you will also get access to 10K Sustainability, which is a workshop that shows you exactly how to scale to 10K and the questions and the strategies and the energies that you need to be stepping into your business to guarantee that you can scale 10K months. So I will drop the link to that in the about section down below. Make sure you go and sign up because it's on a really juicy price point at the minute.